Edward Cole, 67, has died. Born in 1938, he was a wealthy industrialist, having made his fortune in steel and general investing during the 1950s and 60s. He was a respected member of the community, donating money to local charities and even building a community center. However, rumors surrounded him, including a supposed marriage to a mysterious red-headed woman who has been seen at his mansion many times, as well as a little red-headed girl, rumored to be their daughter. Any attempts to find these two have proved fruitless. Another supposed rumor is his involvement with the paranormal, specifically magic and sorcery. Regardless of his secretive alternate life, he is remembered as a kind, compassionate, generous man. He is survived by his two daughters, Amanda, 42, Samantha, 38, his son-in-law, Chris, 46, and his two grandsons, Jacob, 15, and John, 10. His mansion was sold at auction, per his will. Of his remaining family, Amanda and her husband Chris were given his stock options, investment funds, and properties held overseas. Samantha was given his bank accounts. John was given his collection of old comic books, which he collected since he was only a child, and Jacob was given a mysterious chest, so old that it could only be opened with a skeleton key. Jacob wasn't too interested, but when he got home from the funeral, he decided to open it. Inside was a collection of books written in either Latin or Greek, but it looked like his grandfather wrote a translation on the backs of the pages, which were blank. There was a small box at the very bottom, with a gold ring. "Cool," he said, "maybe I can give it to Jamie." He also found a note at the very bottom, written to him. "Dear Jacob, I am sure you have heard the rumors of my interest in magic and the supernatural, and I want you to know that it is true. I am a sorcerer, but before you think that this has been preordained, don't worry, this was written at the same time as the fourth revision of my will. I hope that I have lived a very long time after writing this, but I don't think that is the case. In any event, the items in this box are for your eyes only. They are my books on magic. You may do with them what you will, but I have given them to you in the hopes that they will either appreciate value in a museum, or you will use them for yourself. But the ring in the very bottom, that is yours and yours alone. Do not, I repeat, not give it away. Keep it hidden and safe, for a rival magician wants it. This ring has the power to transform your body. I have used it many times." Edward Cole, 67, has died. Born in 1938, he was a wealthy industrialist, having made his fortune in steel and general investing during the 1950s and 60s. He was a respected member of the community, donating money to local charities and even building a community center. However, rumors surrounded him, including a supposed marriage to a mysterious red-headed woman who has been seen at his mansion many times, as well as a little red-headed girl, rumored to be their daughter. Any attempts to find these two have proved fruitless. Another supposed rumor is his involvement with the paranormal, specifically magic and sorcery. Regardless of his secretive alternate life, he is remembered as a kind, compassionate, generous man. He is survived by his two daughters, Amanda, 42, Samantha, 38, his son-in-law, Chris, 46, and his two grandsons, Jacob, 15, and John, 10. His mansion was sold at auction, per his will. Of his remaining family, Amanda and her husband Chris were given his stock options, investment funds, and properties held overseas. Samantha was given his bank accounts. John was given his collection of old comic books, which he collected since he was only a child, and Jacob was given a mysterious chest, so old that it could only be opened with a skeleton key. Jacob wasn't too interested, but when he got home from the funeral, he decided to open it. Inside was a collection of books written in either Latin or Greek, but it looked like his grandfather wrote a translation on the backs of the pages, which were blank. There was a small box at the very bottom, with a gold ring. "Cool," he said, "maybe I can give it to Jamie." He also found a note at the very bottom, written to him. "Dear Jacob, I am sure you have heard the rumors of my interest in magic and the supernatural, and I want you to know that it is true. I am a sorcerer, but before you think that this has been preordained, don't worry, this was written at the same time as the fourth revision of my will. I hope that I have lived a very long time after writing this, but I don't think that is the case. In any event, the items in this box are for your eyes only. They are my books on magic. You may do with them what you will, but I have given them to you in the hopes that they will either appreciate value in a museum, or you will use them for yourself. But the ring in the very bottom, that is yours and yours alone. Do not, I repeat, not give it away. Keep it hidden and safe, for a rival magician wants it. This ring has the power to transform your body. I have used it many times, and I believe that you will enjoy it too. Now, read these instructions carefully. The ring is a metal ring with a movable gold piece on top of that ring. It can move to 4 different positions and the gold will change color: blue, red, orange, and green, one for each position, with gold as the 5th, or normal, or starting position. Once you change to a different position, your body will change, but there is a time limit before you can change back. You must wait 1 day before changing back. You can remove the ring, but you must be wearing it in order to change back. If you lose it, you will be stuck in that form for the rest of your life, so take my advice, don't remove it. I have used this ring of transformation many times since I discovered it. During my life as a businessman and research scientist, I have changed to a different form in life to escape the pressures and stress, for a little while at least. I hope you can use it the same. Farewell. Jacob gently put the note down and stared at the ring. The idea of changing into another person appealed to him slightly, but he was still pretty hesitant. He decided to put it aside for now and think about it. He didn't really think about it until a few days later. It was the 4th of July, and his parents were having a barbecue with his Aunt Samantha, his mother's younger, unmarried sister, as well as his parents' best friends, the Versins. They had a 15-year-old son named Brad, who was also Jacob's best friend. They were sitting around eating their meal when Jacob turned to Brad. "So, if you had the power to turn into someone else, would you?" He looked at him strangely. "What? No, just, suppose you could, would you?" "Well, who are we talking about?" "I don't know, anyone. I guess it would depend on who," he said. He grinned. "Maybe someone that can get a date." "You mean with Jamie? The hottest girl in the school? What do you think?" "You two are only 15, Jacob's mother, Amanda said. "You don't need to worry about that just yet." "Other guys are already dating," Jacob protested. "Don't worry about that right now," Aunt Samantha said. "Trust me. I've been trying to find Mr. Right for a long time now. Just enjoy your youth before you start worrying about that." "Yeah," John said, sneering at him, "you'll never get a date with your ugly face." Jacob just stared at him. "Oh yeah?" He grabbed a scoop of coleslaw and was about to throw it at him, but his mother stopped him. She told him to get the cake from inside. He walked to the door with John laughing at him from behind. Jacob walked into the kitchen and found the cake. He was about to get it, when he thought about that ring. He didn't know why, but he had an overwhelming desire to try it. He ran upstairs and found it right where he left it, on his dresser. He slid it on his finger, his heart pounding. He walked over to his mirror and stared at his reflection, a 15-year-old boy with a crew cut of brown hair, which he got from his father since his mother was blonde. He was of average height and weight, wearing a pair of jeans and a white t-shirt. He grabbed the golden circle on the top of the metal ring, took a deep breath and turned counterclockwise. He only meant to turn to the first position, but he was overeager and turned to the second one instead. The ring turned a bright orange and sent a shock through his body. He watched his reflection in awe and shock. He shrunk about a foot, and the rest of his body got smaller as well. He felt his manhood pull back into his body and a strange sensation between his legs. His hips pushed outward as the sides of his stomach pulled inward, creating an hourglass figure. The front of his shirt pushed outward as his chest grew into 2 large lumps. His hair grew longer until it flowed to his mid-backs. He felt his boxers shrink and press against his now smooth crotch, while the sleeves on his shirt disappeared as his collar moved down his body. His jeans shrunk against his legs and the bottom pulled up to just below his knees. Lastly, his socks vanished and his sneakers changed into a pair of pink sandals. He blinked a few times as he stared at his reflection. Instead of the 15-year-old boy he normally saw, there was now a 15-year-old girl, with long flowing hair, wearing a white tank top and a pair of brown capris. Oh wow! Turning around, he could see that his room had changed as well, into a typical teenage girl's room, a pink bedspread, a matching dresser and makeup stand, dresses and skirts in the closet, and clothes thrown about the floor. It worked! It actually worked! Jacob laughed. He was still in shock, but decided that he'd better get back outside with the cake. Once outside, his mother got up and took the cake from him. "What took you so long, Jessica?" "Jessica?" His mother thought he was a girl? Well, if the ring changed his room, it probably changed everyone's memories too. He just played along. "I, tried to find a knife," Jessica lied. "We have one on the table," Amanda said. "Now why don't you sit down and I'll cut you a piece." Jessica walked back over to her seat, which was still next to Brad's. After sitting down, she noticed that Brad was looking at her. She turned to him and he just smiled. She tried to ignore that during dessert, but after the cake, Brad wanted to speak to her in private. They walked around to the front of the house. "So, what's up?" she asked. Brad leaned forward and kissed her on the lips. She was too shocked to push away. When he pulled back, she stared at him in horror. What are you doing?" He shook his head. "I don't care that our parents think we're too young to date, Jessica. I love you." He reached forward to grab her again, but she pushed him away. "Brad. Come on," he said, moving closer, pining her up against the wall. "Brad, a top," she shouted. He sighed and moved back. "You're right, we can't do this while our parents are here. Why don't you come over next week? My parents are going away, we can have the entire house to ourselves." Jessica hesitated. I'll have to think about it." Suddenly, Brad's father appeared around the corner. "Brad, come on, we're leaving." "All right, see you later, Jess." "Yeah, bye." She watched him leave with a smile on his face. She shivered. "Oh man, my best friend coming on to me?" She shivered again. After helping her mother clean up, she finally got a chance to check herself out. She made sure her door was completely closed before she stood in front of the mirror. She grabbed her tank top and pulled it off. She could see two medium-sized breasts pushing through a simple white bra. She pulled off her capri pants so she could look at her bottom as well. She had on a pair of white panties. She was attractive, and had a figure that any teenage girl would envy. Even though she was only 15, she could easily pass for an 18 or 19-year-old. She stood there, admiring herself for a few more minutes before she felt something splatter into her backside. She looked over and saw that her naked back was covered with coleslaw. She spun around and saw John laughing at her from her doorway. "You look like a hot dog, Jessica," he laughed. "You little brat," she shouted. She wanted to run after him, but didn't want to run around in just her underwear. She covered herself as best she could and chased him out of her room. "That fing little," she yelled. Her screams brought their parents upstairs. She smiled to herself as her father dragged him away, no doubt to be punished. Her mother hugged her. "Don't let him get to you, sweetie," she said. "I think little brothers are supposed to be a pain to older sisters." "How would you know? You don't have any brothers." "Your Aunt Samantha was more of a pain than any little brother could be," she smiled. "Come on, I'll help you change." She brought her into the shower and helped her undress. She felt really weird having her mother seeing her naked, but she figured that mothers and daughters probably did this thing all the time, or something like that. Since it was already after 9, her mother just brought her sleepwear, a pair of shorts and pink t-shirt. She spent the rest of the night in her room before finally falling asleep. When she woke up the next day, the first thing she did was stare at the ring on her finger. It was still orange, but shouldn't she be able to change back? She began to panic, until she realized that it hadn't been a full day since she changed. It was during the evening, so she would need to wait until then to change back. She breathed a sigh of relief and walked downstairs. Her mother was already making breakfast. "While you were asleep," Jamie called. "Jamie?" she asked. "Yeah, I said you were still sleeping, but that you'd call her back as soon as possible." She was trying to think who Jamie could be. She gasped, "You mean Jamie Collins?" "Yes, your best friend. Who else would I mean?" Jessica didn't reply as she walked back to her room. Jamie Collins was the most popular girl in her school. She didn't even know that her male self was alive. Why would she be her best friend since now that she was a girl? Luckily, Jamie's number was right next to the phone in her room. She dialed, and after a minute Jamie answered. "Hello? Jamie, it's Jocko, Jessica." "Jessica. What's up? My pool's finally finished. Do you want to come over and try it out?" A pool? That meant a bathing suit. She was going to refuse, but realized that if she could find out more about Jamie, maybe when she turned back to normal, she could finally ask her out. Sure, I'll be there." "Great. Come on over now, and we'll hang for a while. Bye." Jessica hung up the phone and sighed. "Might as well see what my bathing suit looks like." She found her suit in the top drawer of her dresser. It was a two-piece suit imprinted with flowers. At least it was still modest, it wasn't like a bikini. She slid it on and looked at her reflection. To her, it felt like wearing her panties and bra, only the suit covered more. She reached for a pair of jean shorts, but caught a glimpse of a denim skirt hanging in the closet. Well, she did change herself into a girl, and was wearing a girl's bathing suit. She grabbed the skirt and slid it on. It felt odd to feel a draft against the top of her legs. Well, she was already wearing it. She finished her outfit by grabbing a pink t-shirt. After filling a bag with spare clothes, she told her parents she was going out. Her mother told her to have fun, but her father wanted her back home at curfew, no later. She never had that problem when she was still a boy. Maybe her father had more of a protection thing with a daughter. When she knocked on Jamie's door, the girl in question answered it. She was dressed in a pink and white bikini. "Jessica, hey! Come on in." Jessica stepped inside, but was thrown back when Jamie hugged her, their breasts pressing against each other. "I'm so glad you came. Come on, the others are already in the water." "Others?" she asked. They stepped outside and saw that the pool was full of other girls from school. At least there weren't any boys there, especially Brad. Jessica spent the majority of her time there trying to talk to Jamie, but she was too busy playing hostess. She did spend time with the other girls, playing Marco Polo and other water games. He didn't really find out anything about Jamie, but figured that as her best friend, she could just come over at another time. The next day, Jessica woke up and checked the ring. It had changed from orange to gold. She breathed a sigh of relief and twisted the ring back to its original position. Her body felt a shock of energy and changed back to her male body. Her room returned to normal. Jacob sighed another sigh of relief. At least he was back to normal, but the temptation to try it was soon too much for him. He changed to his female alter ego many times during that summer. Though it was fun. But he had only used one of the positions on the ring so far, but when school started again he was almost overwhelmed. September came before he knew it, and it was time for school. His middle school was attached to the elementary school, so John even went on the same bus as him. It was the third day of school, picture day, when the temptation to use the ring became too strong. He was sitting on the bus, riding towards school, when he decided to use the ring again. He put the ring on and twisted it to the third setting. Once again, he felt the burst of energy. This time, he was shrinking. He was getting shorter and smaller, much shorter and smaller, until he couldn't even see over the front of the school bus seat. His hair grew longer again, reaching the middle of his back. His clothes twisted and changed as well. Once the transformation was complete, he examined himself. He was a 7-year-old girl, with long brown hair that was held in place by a pink hair ribbon, wearing a pink denim jumper, white t-shirt, white stockings, dress shoes and a denim jacket. His backpack was now pink with a picture of a cat on the front, and a matching lunchbox appeared beside her. She blinked for a few moments. She had never changed into this form before, so it was a bit of a shock to her system. She only recovered when she felt someone's hand on her shoulder. She turned to see John standing next to her. "Jessie, aren't you coming?" "What?" she asked. "We're at school," he said, obviously annoyed. "You gonna be late if you don't get to your class." Jessie forced herself off of the school bus. As soon as she did, another 7-year-old red-headed girl ran over to her. She was dressed in a short-sleeve, pink and white striped dress, stockings and dress shoes as well. She was wearing a yellow jacket, carrying a backpack with images of flowers and a lunchbox similar to hers. "Jessie," she called, laughing. Hi. Your jumper looks so pretty," she grinned. Jessie remembered that girls complimented each other. "I like your dress too." She glanced at this girl, trying to think of some way to find out who she was. She wasn't familiar at all. She lucked out when she saw a name written in glitter on the yellow lunchbox, Amy. She wanted to try her hypothesis, but how? She judged by the way they were dressed that it must still be picture day. "Do you know when we're getting our pictures taken, Amy?" "I don't know. I think after lunch." That must be her name. She was happy about that, but suddenly, Amy grabbed her hand and led her into the school. She was glad that she was leading her towards her second-grade classroom. Inside, all of the other 6 and 7 years old were dressed in a similar manner. Amy brought them over to 2 empty desks side by side. Luckily, at this young age, the names were taped onto the desks. That must be why they appeared to be friends. Once the school lessons actually started, she quickly realized how bored she was. She knew everything about this already. In fact, she already knew everything that would be taught after this. She was bored beyond belief, and the stockings were itchy, and she kept scratching her legs. After math class, they were going to gym class. When she got up, her skirt and her stockings rubbed together, giving her legs a slight static shock. Gym class was even worse. She wondered how girls were supposed to do gym class in skirts and dresses. At least all they were doing was running races, and it was her turn. She ran to the other side of the gymnasium, and then ran back. But when she reached the starting point, her dress shoes slipped and she fell into the ground. She felt tears start to well up, but she held them back. That was until one of the boys grabbed her dress and pulled it up over her waist, revealing her stocking-covered panties. The boys started laughing and she started crying. She didn't know where it was coming from, but it couldn't stop. She ran over to the corner and kept crying. The gym teacher sent her to the nurse. The old woman smiled at her and made sure that she didn't have any injuries on her face. After that, she sent her back to the classroom. Amy was fussing over her almost like a mother. Is that how little girls acted? Picture time was bad too. After waiting in line for what seemed like forever, she sat down in the seat while the old man fumbled and fussed with her hair and adjusted her outfit. He reminded her of her grandfather, when he was still alive. After a very long day, she was finally home. Her mother asked her all sorts of questions about what happened during the day, just like she normally did, but this time it was like she was reliving her own youth in Jessie's day. After a mid-afternoon snack, Amanda made her go to her room to do her homework. Her room was in the same place as it had been, but clearly belonged to a young girl. The wallpaper was covered with flowers and kittens, her bedspread and carpet looked very much the same. Homework was really easy. It didn't take long since she knew everything the second grade taught 8 years ago. After she was done, she didn't know what else to do. What did little girls do for fun? She glanced around the room and found a collection of Barbie dolls in the corner. Why not? She was stuck like this until tomorrow morning, might as well see what goes on. She actually did end up having fun. It kind of reminded her of playing with action figures when she was younger. Soon, she was called down to dinner. John was already sitting there. She didn't even get to her seat before John grabbed the back of her pigtails and pulled as hard as he could. She gave a yell and almost started crying. "John," their mother shouted, "stop picking on your little sister." Jessie started to blush. That had to be the most embarrassing thing she had ever heard. The night was even worse. It seemed all John existed for was to torment his younger sister. She was more than happy to turn back to normal the next morning. After turning back to normal, he stared at the ring, which was once again gold. By using the third position, he changed into a girl his own age. When he used the second setting, he changed into a 7-year-old. Did that mean that every setting changed his age? So what would the first setting be? He had an idea, but he was beginning to enjoy changing, just like his grandfather said. He wanted to experience it. He grabbed the ring and twisted to the first position, the blue one. The familiar burst of energy shot through his body, but this time he was almost in pain. His eyes got really heavy and he passed out. When he opened his eyes, he knew that something was different, really, really different. He was in a baby's room. Worse, he was in a crib, wearing nothing but a diaper. He judged by the color of the wallpaper and the pinkish tint to the diaper that he was once again a girl. Why did the ring always make him female? Maybe his grandfather had some kind of cross-dressing fetish or something. With nothing else to do, he decided to examine himself. He was young, really young, maybe 2 or 3, but his brown hair had reached his shoulders already. He was still wearing the ring, which was now blue, but he wondered how safe it would be for a baby to be wearing it. Would his parents take it away? He'd be stuck like that forever. He looked around and found a stuffed teddy bear lying in the crib next to him. He managed to rip a hole in the underside and he slipped the ring inside. The door to the room opened and Amanda walked inside. "Hi, Jessica," she grinned, "my little baby." She laughed as she lifted Jessica into the air. When she did, she touched her diapered bottom. "I guess you need to be changed." She tried to protest, but only gurgling, baby noises came out. She was helpless as her mother placed her on a changing table and removed the used diaper and placed a fresh one on. Jessica was happy that Brad and none of her other friends could see her like this. After getting her diaper changed, Amanda dressed her in a simple yellow sundress. Amanda carried her downstairs into the living room. John was there watching television. "John," their mother shouted, kicking something on the floor, "I told you to pick up these Legos?" What if Jessica chalked on them? Jessica suddenly realized just how vulnerable she truly was. She could easily be hurt, or worse. She would have to be extra careful until tomorrow morning. At breakfast, she was forced to sit in a high chair as her mother fed her baby food while they were able to eat pancakes, Jessica's favorite. After the meal, she was placed inside of a playpen in the living room, where she was forced to keep herself amused with blocks. At least with the Barbie dolls you could pretend they were real. This was boring beyond belief. After John went to school and their father went to work, it was just her and Amanda. Her mother wanted to take her to the park, so she was forced into a car seat, tied more like it. Once she got to the park, she was put into a stroller. It was kind of fun to not have to walk, but all she did was sit in the stroller while her mother read a book on the park bench. After what seemed like an eternity, they finally went back home. Jessica soon discovered that the life of a baby was pretty boring. How did real babies handle it? Maybe it was because they were just babies, the minds weren't up to the cognitive levels that older children were. Except for a few embarrassing diaper changes, and even more embarrassing breastfeeding, she spent the remainder of the day lying in her crib. Thankfully the ring was exactly where she left it. She didn't know what she would do stuck as a little girl forever. As soon as she woke up the next morning, she was able to change back to normal quickly. His experience as a helpless, defenseless baby scared him enough to hide the ring for the remainder of the school year. It was round the end of June. He decided that he was going to try the other setting. His father had already left for work, and his mother used to work, but since her father died and left her his stock options, they made millions in the stock market. She no longer needed to work, which she gladly accepted. Aunt Samantha came over before she left for work. She needed to talk to his mother, Amanda. For some reason, he really wasn't interested. So he ignored them, stood at the top of the steps and turned the ring. He twisted it to the first position counterclockwise. Once again, he felt the energy shot through him. Instead of shrinking, he was growing, getting about a foot taller. His body twisted and changed until he was no longer a 15-year-old boy. He was older, that much he was sure of, much older. He guessed he was around 30, a 30-year-old woman, with shoulder-length blonde hair, long, lovely legs, large breasts, wearing a gray business jacket, matching skirt, white blouse, with platform dress shoes. There was a purse dangling from his shoulders. "Jessica, aren't you coming?" Samantha said. Jessica blinked a few times. "See, coming?" "Yeah, to work, remember?" she asked. "Geez, sis, you sure can be such an airhead." "Sis?" she asked. Well, she figured that must be the logical role for her, as she was too old to be her mother's child. She must be the youngest sister of her mother. That would explain why she had blonde hair, not the brown she got from her father. "Are you going or not?" "Yeah, sorry Mom." "Mom?" she asked. Sorry Amanda," she said. It sure was odd to call her mother by her first name. "I thought you were going to hold back on the alcohol," Samantha laughed. Jessica flashed a forced smile. "Yeah, heh." She walked down the stairs, glad that her shoes were platform and not heels. She followed Samantha to her red car and climbed into the passenger side. Once Samantha was in the driver's side, she floored the car onto the street. "So, how'd last night go?" she asked. Last night?" she asked. "With Alex?" she giggled. "Alex?" "Yes, Alex Franklin?" she asked. "You were talking about it for weeks." She eyed her. "You weren't drinking, right?" Jessica shook her head, sending her blonde hair flying over her face. "No." "All right," Samantha said. "You know what that stuff does to you." "I'm just trying to watch out for my little sister." That felt weird, she thought. Well, apparently, she and Samantha worked at the same place, the law offices of Levitz and Schulman. She was wondering if she was a lawyer. That would have been really cool, but she realized she was probably a secretary, like Samantha. It wasn't as bad as she thought. She was a paralegal for Levitz. As soon as she stepped through the door, Mr. Levitz grabbed her and pulled her his office. "I'm glad you're here," he smiled. "We've got a big case coming up. I need you to research anything have to do with accidental murder in this state." She was shocked. Murder?" she gasped. He nodded. "Yes, Megan Sully and her husband Mike were having a history of marital problems, and they were just playing around one night when she accidentally killed him during their lovemaking. The prosecution wants to rule it as intentional, and our only defense is that it was an accident. Find what you can in the archives." She nodded. Right." She turned and exited, stepping back in the hall. Where the heck was the archives? She figured that many archives were in the basement, and she was correct. The archive room was drafty and cold. As soon as she stepped inside, she felt a chilly draft on her bare legs. She couldn't help but shiver. The red-headed woman behind the main desk chuckled. "Yeah, it's always cold down here, Jess, even in the summer. It's good for the computers. What can I help you with, Jessica?" "I, need anything I can find on accidental murder." "Oh yeah, that big case. Well, come on back." As she led her into the rear to a computer terminal, Jessica couldn't help but think how familiar the woman was. "Here, I'm sure you know how to use this by now," she smiled. As soon as she smiled, Jessica recognized her. She looked like Amy, that girl from when she was 7 years old. This woman must be her mother. Jessica forced a smile and sat down. Luckily, it didn't look any different from the database at the school. She was able to easily navigate through it. She began to look, but her legs were still cold. She stared down at them. The skirt she was wearing barely reached her knees. She thought for a minute and crossed one leg over the other. As a boy, she had never been able to do this, but it seemed so natural as a girl. After scrolling text for about an hour, she found something she could use. She leaned back and crossed her arms. Her breasts became squished. She noticed how much bigger they were as a woman than as a teenager. She was 30 right now, Would they grow bigger, or start to sag like her grandmother's did? She searched for the rest of the day and found a number of articles. Mr. Levitz was really impressed. "You deserve a raise," he said, "and I'm going to push it through, no matter what Schulman says." Jessica blushed. Thanks." She left the office and ran into Samantha. "All right, quitting time," she laughed, "and it's Friday. Come on, let's go to the movies or something." Sure." Samantha giggled. "We'll get Amanda to come too. That'll be great, right?" "Yeah." Was it supposed to be fun? She guessed by Samantha's expression it was supposed to be. They called Amanda from the car and she agreed. Samantha dropped Jessica off at home and drove back to her own house to change. Jessica stepped inside and Amanda was making dinner. "Oh, hey sis," she said, "I already showered, so jump in before Samantha gets back." She nodded. Sure. The shower was an interesting experience. Every section of her body seemed to be sensitive. How could women wash themselves every day without arousing their breasts? She didn't know what to wear, but figured that since they were just going to the movies, she grabbed a pair of white shorts and a pink t-shirt that showed off a fair amount of her cleavage. She tried not to think about it too much, but at the same time, she was proud of her body. Her mother was dressed in a denim skirt and a white sweater. She raised an eye at Jessica. "Conservative look tonight, sis?" Yeah." Amanda grinned. "Not feeling up to the looks from guys tonight?" She shook her head. "No. I mean, Amanda started laughing. She hugged Jessica. "Does that mean that Alex Franklin?" She didn't have any idea what Amanda was talking about, so she just nodded. "Yeah." "Oh, I'm so happy for you. Just don't let Samantha hear you or else she's gonna be very jealous." Since Jessica still didn't know what she was talking about, she wasn't about to speak to Samantha about that. Of course, when she arrived dressed in a low-cut dress with an almost ridiculously short skirt, she didn't know why, but she wanted to tell her anything about Alex. The movie they ended up seeing was some crappy romantic movie. At least Jessica thought it would be crappy, but at the end, she found herself crying at the display of true love exhibited by the two lead characters. The three sisters decided to go out for dinner afterwards. Samantha was talking about this guy she had been dating. Jessica didn't know why, but for some reason, she wanted to talk about Alex again, but she bit back her tongue. Did sisters always try to compete with each other like this? She was also more than a little disappointed when none of the good-looking middle-aged men at the restaurant didn't even attempt to pick her up. Because of that, she drank more than she should have and woke up the next morning with a splitting hangover. The ring had changed back to gold, so she wanted to twist it back, but her head was pounding too hard. She decided to take some medication first. She stumbled downstairs and looked through the medicine cabinet. Amanda walked in a second later. She was wide awake and was already dressed in a white t-shirt and a pair of shorts. "Hey, morning!" Jessica groaned as she swallowed the pills. Amanda started laughing. "Oh, hangover, huh? Well, I told you not to drink so much." Jessica's head was still pounding, and she wondered if changing back to normal would get rid of it. She reached over the ring and twisted it back. However, she didn't know that her mother had placed her hand on her shoulder until it was too late. Jessica felt the familiar burst of energy, changing her back to 14-year-old Jacob. He spun around, but instead of his mother, he saw a teenage girl standing in the bathroom. She looked a lot like her mother, and was even wearing a white t-shirt and a pair of shorts, only the shirt was much tighter and the shorts much shorter. "Geez, Jacob," the girl said, "are you gonna get out of the bathroom so I can use it?" Mom?" she gasped. "Mom?" the girl asked. "Man, you really did have a lot to drink last night. Well, I don't want you to think too hard. I'm your twin sister, Amanda, remember? Now, get out so I can use the bathroom." Jacob stumbled out of her way, staring at the watch. His mother was touching him when he changed back. Did that mean that if someone was touching him when he changed, that person would change too? But why didn't his mother turn to a boy? Maybe because Jacob was just turning back to normal, so his mother just got younger? He was going to have to experiment some more before changing her back. Well, after a few weeks, he was starting to enjoy having a sister. Apparently in this reality, their mother had died after John was born, and his father was working overtime to support all of them. Amanda still sort of acted like a mother, keeping the house, cleaning, cooking, but she didn't discipline them like she would, and was a lot more fun. The only thing he didn't like was that he was forced to share a room with John since Amanda needed a separate room. Their father still had his own room, of course. Sharing a room with his brother quickly became a major problem, and one day he couldn't stand it anymore. It was a Sunday morning, and his father was taking his 2 sons and daughter to the beach. While their father packed up the family car, Jacob was waiting in his bed, trying to read his comic books, when John started making annoying noises. "Keep it down." John kept on making noises. "Shut up," Jacob shouted. John ran over and punched him in the side. "Don't tell me to shut up," he shouted. Jacob had enough. He threw the comic book down and tackled John to the ground. He pinned him under his knee and reached for the ring on his finger. This worked with Mom. He switched the ring to the second position, changing him into a 7-year-old version of himself. His blue swimming trunks changed into a 2-piece girl's bathing suit. After glancing down, he realized that John had changed in a 7-year-old girl as well, dressed in a similar suit. Jacob still had the female John pinned to the ground when Amanda appeared at the doorway. She was wearing a white skirt and a matching tank top. Her green bikini was clearly visible beneath. "Are you two fighting again?" she sighed. She walked over and easily lifted them onto their feet. "If you don't behave, Dad's not gonna take us." The female John frowned. "You're not gonna tell, right?" Amanda smiled. "I'll give you one more chance, Janie, all right?" She looked over at Jacob. "That goes for you too, Jessica." They nodded. "Good, now Dad's ready, so let's go." Janie grinned and ran after their older sister. Jessica frowned. "That was stupid," she said to herself. "I didn't solve anything. Now instead of a bratty little brother, I've got a bratty twin sister. Just perfect." Jessica was even more surprised to discover that Brad was waiting downstairs. She was wondering what he was doing there, but a quick kiss on Amanda's cheek made her realize they were going out. Their father walked into the living room. "Hey Brad." He smiled nervously. "Hi." "You don't need to be so nervous there," he smiled. "I'm just glad to have another guy come here every so often." "Dad." Amanda blushed. He laughed. "Come on, let's hit the beach, okay?" They piled into a large van. Amanda and Brad sat in the middle seats, which meant that either Jessica or Janie got to sit in the front. "I'm sitting there," Janie shouted, pushing past Jessica and knocking her to the ground. She didn't know what came over her, but she ran in Janie and pulled her out of the seat. "Stop it, right now," their father shouted, "or we're not going, understand?" The 2 girls stood at attention. "Janie can sit there on the way down and Jessica can sit there on the way home, understand?" They both nodded. Jessica climbed into the back seat of the van, while Janie grinned and jumped into the front seat. Jessica knew she shouldn't care, but she couldn't help it. The next morning, she was more than ready to change back. It wasn't the 7-year-old thing that was the problem, it was having Janie as a twin sister. It seemed that no matter what reality, John/Janie was going to be a hyper, pain-in-the-butt sibling. She figured that she should change her mother back to normal too, but how? She got an idea that morning while eating breakfast. Janie was watching some kind of cartoon where a rabbit pushed a dog down the stairs. Their father had gone to work, so Amanda was babysitting. Jessica dragged Janie to the top of the stairs, took a deep breath, and pushed her down them. She didn't push really hard, and there weren't that many stairs, so she only hurt her rear when she landed on it. She started crying, and Amanda came running over. She hugged her little sister, comforting her. Jessica ran down the stairs as fast as she could and pressed her back up against both of them. She twisted the ring back to its original position, and she changed back to Jacob. He turned back around but was horrified when he saw 7-year-old Janie crying in 14-year-old Amanda's arms. "There you are, Jacob," she said. I think Janie fell down the stairs. Can you get an ice pack from the freezer? He nodded numbly as he walked into the kitchen. Why didn't they change back to normal? He spent most of the morning looking through all of the spell books his grandfather left him when he came to one called Infusing Magic Items to Yourself. He glanced through it out of curiosity, but all it was a spell to take the magic from an item and place it within your own body. He guessed it would be just like taking the magic from that ring and placing it within his own body. He suddenly gasped. Of course, why didn't he see it before? He ran downstairs and told Amanda that he was going for a bike ride. He rode as fast as he could until he reached the mansion that once belonged to his grandfather. He knocked on the door and wasn't even surprised when the same woman who worked at the law firm appeared. The same red-headed woman, the same woman he guessed was Amy's mother. Hi, Grandpa. She grinned. Hello, Jacob. Please, come inside. They walked into the kitchen, where the woman offered him some refreshments. I knew you would figure it out, she said. You were always so smart. Jacob nodded. Yeah, you faked your death, but used a magic spell to bring the magic in the ring into your own body, then started living as this woman. But what about Amy? She shrugged. Sometimes I enjoy pretending to be a child too. I, of course, knew it was you every time you saw me. So, are you having fun with the ring I gave you? Yeah, he said, but why does it always change me into a girl? The woman shrugged. I can't say. I found it after buying a trunk of magic artifacts from a mysterious man from a shop on the street, but that was before we even had malls. I don't know why it turns people into girls, and I've always wondered if it changed girls into boys. I don't think it does, he said. He explained the situation about his mother and younger brother. The woman nodded. So, I see. Well, Jacob, I'm sorry, but I don't know where to begin to help you. Because, you see, my memories tell me that my daughter, your mother, died after Janie was born. Yes, and that you've always had a twin sister and a younger sister. So, altering reality changed my memories as well. I'm afraid that you're the only one who can change them back. I'm sorry. Jacob nodded. He thanked the woman for her help, and rode home in defeat. How was he going to fix things? He was an adult woman when his mother changed, and he was a kid when his brother changed. Maybe you need to be in the same age bracket in order to change things. If he wanted to change his mother back, maybe he need to be touching her at the same time he changed into an adult woman. He'd have to try that as soon as he got home. He waited until Amanda was watching TV in the living room. She probably wouldn't expect it then. He gripped his finger on the ring and accidentally stepped on her foot. He went to turn the ring to the adult selection, but he only reached the first setting before Amanda kicked his foot off of hers, which made him release the ring. He was changing into a baby again, and since Amanda was touching him, she wasn't going to change. He closed his eyes as he felt his body once again change to that of a baby girl, this time with blonde hair instead of brown, dressed in a short yellow sundress. He was still off balance, so he landed on his diapered rear. He looked up at Amanda, who was towering over him. Ouch, Jessica, you got to be more careful than that, she laughed, lifting her up. Jessica sighed to herself. Now she had to spend time as a baby girl before she could try again. Amanda rocked her back and forth before there was a knock on the door. She opened it and saw her Aunt Samantha standing on the porch. The adult woman laughed and reached for Jessica. My little baby. Oh, Mommy's so happy to see you. Mommy? Well, Jessica figured that made sense since there was no mother figure in the house anymore. That would also explain the blonde hair. Well, thanks so much for babysitting Amanda, Samantha said. Oh, no problem, the teenage girl smiled. It gives me some money I can blow on the movies or something. Samantha smiled and kissed Amanda on the cheek. Well, tell your father I said hello. I will, bye, she waved as she closed the door. Jessica was slightly worried. She was leaving her own home, but as long as she had the ring, everything should be all right. She was also more surprised at Samantha. She'd never seen her aunt act so responsibly before. Maybe having a kid really settled her down. Instead of the messy apartment she had, it was now clean and spotless. There weren't phone numbers of various guys hanging on the refrigerator, just one which Jessica guessed might be her father. She even had her own baby room, complete with a closet, which was locked, probably to keep her from chalking on anything. Samantha placed her in the crib, but as she did, she noticed the ring on her finger. Oops, what's this? I wonder if Amanda gave this to you? Well, I don't think it's safe unless Mommy's watching you. Jessica's heart froze as she watched Samantha slip the ring off of her finger. There, now Mommy will keep this safe until she thinks you can wear it, okay? Samantha grinned and left the room. Jessica was stunned. She felt her panic start to rise, but pushed it down, telling herself that she would find a way to change back, she'd find a way to get that ring. She ended up having to wait a good 3 days before she even had a chance. 3 long, boring, tiring days. Days, which she had to keep watch and plan. She figured out that Samantha put the ring in her own room, on one of the shelves of her dresser. The dresser was right next to her bed, so all Jessica would have to do is climb on top of the bed, reach over and grab the ring. It was simple. She had even figured out a way to climb over the bars of the crib. She couldn't wait until her mother left her alone for her afternoon nap. She had dressed her in a white, long-sleeve shirt and a denim jumper. The skirt kept getting in the way as she climbed over the bars and gently landed on the floor. She smoothed it out